Hi everybody, hope you're well. Hope you're having a great day, whatever you're doing. So I have been thinking about how our emotional brain and our logical brains work, and I was thinking about emotions. So there are 6 general emotions, and today I'd like to look at the emotion called fear and how that impacts on our lives, certainly in my life, how I respond to fear and how it changes my behaviour and it changes my communication. So I was thinking, well, when have I dealt with fear in a capacity in my negotiating days? And I thought of some of the instances that I've dealt with, and one of them sprang immediately to mind. And it was this young lady who lived in South London, and she was always falling out with her boyfriend, always falling out with him. And she was often accusing him of being unfaithful, of always looking at other women. She was very insecure in their relationship and in herself. And often this would manifest itself, so show up in her life by her drinking heavily and then going to the top of this multi-story car park, put my teeth in, top of a multi-story car park, and demanding to see him and standing on the edge of the building until he came to speak to her. And I remember talking to her once, and when I arrived, she had got herself into a state of hanging from the top of the car park. And I remember this very clearly because I turned up and I looked up and the first thing I saw was her hanging there. I thought, that's not good. And because of the power of the jealousy that she was fearing or feeling, this was how she was reacting to it. So her immediate reaction, her cycle of behaviour would be, I'm insecure in myself, I'm fearful of losing my relationship, that's causing me jealousy, that's now having an impact on how I'm reacting to the world. And I honestly don't believe that she ever wanted to really hurt herself, although you can never say that, of course. But I was always very fearful that by accident she would have fallen. Now, thankfully, she was fine, and as far as I know, she is fine. But I just use that as an example to show the extreme lengths that people will go to. I mean, jealousy, it is a killer. People, unfortunately, domestic incidents, people kill in jealousy. So I was thinking, okay, so what is it that causes our jealousy? How does it show up in your life? And I'll give you an example of how it shows up in my life. So I caught myself the other month flicking through LinkedIn, and I came across an old colleague from a long time ago, and they had this beautifully designed website. They seemed to be doing incredibly well, and they were selling all these amazing things that they'd done in the world. And I felt myself getting jealous. I felt myself sitting there and having that pushback reaction of, oh my God. And I started to compare myself. So jealousy often comes from fear. And fear is often a protective mechanism. So in the good old days, in the primitive days, it was fight or flight, where you would run away from a dinosaur or you'd stay and fight the dinosaur. Nowadays, it's brought on by a whole host of other things in this modern world, modern technology, stress, family life, all those things. They cause the same sort of fear, but they cause us to compare ourselves with other people. And when we compare ourselves with other people, what happens is we have that internal dialogue, that inferior complex. And the wise man once said to me that inferior complex is your fight or flight. That is your internal dialogue telling you that there's something not right. And generally, in the psychology world, that comes from way back, probably when you were 5 and somebody bullied you. So that's your protective internal dialogue. So when you compare yourself against somebody else, it's because of an inferiority within yourself. So when people call you names or they talk about you behind your back, that is a comparison that they're doing driven by fear, which causes the jealousy. So I hope that makes sense. So that's where it all comes from, in a very small nutshell of an explanation. But it's really about the behaviour and the way that we then end up communicating that behaviour that I would like to focus on. So what happens is, when you're internalising, you can't see a bigger picture. So when you're comparing yourself to other people, all you have is that negative dialogue. So you'll use words like, why are they so much better than me? Why can't I do that? Why can't people see my potential? And it's all those negative can't, won't words that start to formulate in our minds and start to affect our behaviour. So that we all suffer from emotions. We all suffer from jealousy and from comparison at some stage. Some of us are better at dealing with it than other people are. So I've probably spent a good half a day going around with this, like, why are they being so successful? What's happened to me? Why can't I do that? Why can't people see my potential? And all of these things and all of that inferiority. And I ended up sitting down and having a conversation with my partner, and I was just like, what is it? What is it about this? Why am I doing this? And when you talk it out and you can kind of find a way, okay, I get this. I'm comparing myself to somebody for no reason, because I have no idea what's going on in their life. I have no idea what challenges they're facing. I have no idea how they get up in the morning and get on with their day. So let's focus on me and what I can control. Now, if you ever read the book called The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People by Stephen Covey, he talks about control circles. So you have a fear bubble. So the fear bubble is what you can't control. They're things out of your control. So if you think about COVID-19, you can't control the lockdown, you can't control the disease, you can't control who might catch it, but what you can control is your own control bubble, your immediate surroundings. So you can control what you do to protect yourself. You can control what you do when you get up in the morning. You can control the way that you behave, as long as you're aware of the behaviour that you're displaying. So the thing about emotions is you get caught up in them very quickly. There's a great book called The Chimp Paradox that explains very simply the logical and the emotional brain. And the emotional brain is 5 times stronger than the logical brain, which means we're very quick when we're in unconscious behaviour to go straight into that emotional brain and react in a non-logical emotional format. And you probably found yourself doing this before. And this is what I was doing with the comparison. What I was allowing my brain to do was throw all those inferior sayings at me that allowed me to compare myself and feel inferior. So I have a saying about a great big pause button. So if you can in your life, when you can catch yourself in the emotion, and that's the hardest part, is the self-awareness to catch yourself in the emotion. So we're talking about fear. So when you're fearful of something and it's driving that behaviour, press that big pause button up here and just stop and ask yourself the question of, what is causing me to be fearful? And then once you know what the cause is, you can look at how you can control your immediate sphere. So if we take COVID-19, because it's a topic of conversation at the moment, if you take COVID-19, if you look at the fear that is being driven mainly by the media and talking to other people, unless you've had experience of it, and some of you will have had experience of it, thank goodness I've kept healthy. So you can't control that, but what you can control is how you manage your day. So if I take the fear of comparison, so my brain's running away with me about how inferior I am and how I'm not good enough and how I'm not as good as that other person and look how great they're doing. If I press that big old pause button and bring myself back into the present moment and go, so what have I achieved? And then when I look at all the things I have achieved, I'm like, okay, you know what, this is okay. I'm doing okay. And it stops you having that complete fear all the time. So jealousy is driven by fear. Fear is one of the 6 emotions. You probably think there's loads of other emotions, but there's about 6 emotions. I'm going to look at each one over the next few weeks and how we react, certainly how I react, how I've seen other people react, and how they're driven by that emotion. So when you find yourself comparing yourself to another person, think about what's happening around that. When you find yourself talking about another person, this is a good one, when you find yourself talking about another person or somebody else is talking about another person, stop yourself, think about, what is it that's making me talk about that person? Is it because I'm doing a comparison? Is it because they don't have the same values as me? And then I'm just going to ask you, what on earth is, what purpose is it serving to talk about the other person in the first place, when probably you can control other things and move forward and get on with your day in a different way? So I hope you found that useful. It's in no way meant to be a lecture about not talking about other people, but I do find at the moment there is so much negativity being put out in the world that if we start to be kind to each other and recognise our own emotions and how they drive our communication and our behaviour, and then we can control that, because that's one thing that we can control. We can't control how other people communicate or how other people behave, but we can control what goes on for us. And there was a great FBI agent who I had the privilege of working with, who's written many books and was actually the negotiator in the Captain Phillips story, you know, the guy on the pirate ship. Vince, I'm just going to call him Vince, and I had the privilege of working with him, and I remember him saying to me, you know, the one thing you can control in any situation is you. You can't control what the other person is going to do. I couldn't control that lady hanging off the car park edge. I couldn't control what was going on in her life. But what I can control is me, my emotions, and the way that I communicate and behave to other people. As long as I have and create for myself that self-awareness whereby I can press that pause button, take a big deep breath and go, okay, what is happening here? What is this about? Because once you can find the underlying problem or the underlying challenge that's going on in here for you, you can then work on changing that communication and behaviour. Hope you have a great day. Thanks for tuning in. Thanks for listening. I hope that helps, especially if you're in lockdown or schooling or struggling in any way, shape or form. Do the best you can. Control those circumstances that you can. Give me a shout if you need anything. Take care now. Bye-bye.